On the 21st, Congressman Alberto Fraga, PMDBDF, announced in the Chamber of Deputies that he has conclusive evidence that the PT, Workers' Party, received financial support from the FARC in the last elections. Fraga wants the accusation investigated by a parliamentary inquiry commission and has already begun collecting signatures for this. This is the gravest accusation ever made against a political party in our entire history. The FARC is a revolutionary and criminal organization responsible for the deaths of at least 30,000 Colombians, for the massive supply of cocaine to Brazil through its partner Fernandinho Beramar, for the continuous violation of our borders, and, according to police authorities' suspicions, for training Rio de Janeiro's gangsters in urban guerrilla tactics that have spread terror throughout the city. If this entity interferes in an election in Brazil, that election is completely invalid, and the politicians involved must answer not only for electoral crimes, but also for complicity with drug trafficking and for endangering national security. Yet even more astonishing than the accusation is the total indifference of our media, which until now hasn't even asked Congressman Fraga a single question about it. This indifference contrasts so sharply with reporters' zeal during the early corruption signs in President Collor de Mello's administration that it can only be explained by the dampening effect certain political biases exert, at least unconsciously, on the eagerness to investigate and the will to know. There is, of course, another factor. Compared to the FARC, PC Farias was just a petty thief, and it's easier to be brave against a petty thief than against an armed criminal army. During the elections, I was practically the only Brazilian journalist reminding voters that Lula was president of the São Paulo Forum, the strategic coordination of the communist movement on the continent, in which the PT had solidarized not only with the FARC, but with other criminal entities like the Chilean MIR, a major player in Brazil's thriving kidnapping industry. At the time, I never imagined that Lula, or any other PT candidate, could or would want to receive money from these organizations, but the mere political link associating him with them already seemed to guarantee that, once elected president, his hands would be tied, and he could do nothing against the rising criminality except evasive bravado and hollow promises, just as has happened so far. If the accusations are proven, the entire journalistic class will have to admit it seriously erred by refusing to challenge then-candidate Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva with questions about his party's ties to the Colombian narco-guerrilla, depriving the electorate of vital information for a sensible choice. It is understandable, then, that faced with the obligation to investigate what until yesterday was categorically denied, they feel, Macunema style, a laziness. Dear pacifists, Saddam supporters, anti-Bush activists, and anti-Americans in general, there's a website where you'll find a list of the 100 main Nazi sites on the internet. Almost all of them have some statement about the war. Please, go check it out. They love you madly. And they hate George W. Bush. Is it all a splendid coincidence? Or, as it seems to me, genuine affinity? To clear the doubt, I looked into what the far-right extremists who aren't explicitly Nazis think, like Alain de Benoist, founder of the French New Right, the refined Monsieur Le Pen, or the English historian David Irving, who calls himself a mild fascist. Want to know? They're all applauding you too. That's success, folks. There have always been those who said that the left's anti-Nazism was only a theatrical facade, hastily raised by Stalin to cover up a macabre alliance that Hitler broke unilaterally at the decisive moment. The book by Russian historians Yuri Dyakov and Tatyana Buyaeva, The Red Army and the Wehrmacht, New York, Prometheus Books, 1995, fully confirmed this hypothesis. By arming Germany, the USSR deliberately provoked the outbreak of World War II, hoping to use the Nazis as a spearhead. But the ultimate test was this. If the affinity between the two totalitarianisms was genuine, one day they would appear again hand in hand as soon as the conditions that led to their temporary break dissipated. That is what happened with the rise of Islamic radicalism, the third totalitarian way that resolves contradictions and restores the anti-American alliance between socialism and Nazism. On the 20th, I gave a lecture at the Brazilian Jewish Club in Rio explaining this, but the subject is too complicated to summarize here. As soon as the transcript is published on my website, I will notify Globo readers. Many Brazilian commentators repeat like hysterical parrots that the USA armed Iraq. None of them have ever shown or mentioned a single American weapon captured from Saddam's troops, either in the Gulf War or now. Not a plane, not a missile, not a bomb, not a tank, not a machine gun. Not even a miserable made-in-USA automatic pistol. Only Scuds, Kalashnikovs, etc. But since when does a lie need proof? By the way, read Charles R. Smith's article, Who Armed Iraq? P.S. When a supposedly American bomb accidentally kills 15 Iraqi civilians in a Baghdad market, the media dissolve into cries of horror, and even the UN Secretary General joins the wave of general tears. But when Saddam Hussein's paramilitaries deliberately shoot thousands of civilians fleeing the besieged city of Basra, the worldwide orchestra of good feelings takes a coffee break.